So our guest speaker, preacher today is Reverend Kate Tucker, who served as the associate minister at First Universalist Church in Minneapolis for many years. Her focus was on preaching and pastoral care and small group ministry. And now she is the minister emerita. Kate serves as a spiritual director, and she remains involved in UU and Quaker projects in the Twin Cities area. Lately, she's collaborated with Anne Reed and Gail Hartman on a book of short form poems titled The Less Said. And she's also collaborated with composer Linda Katchermeyer, or something like that, on a hymn titled Loving Will Lead Us On. We'll have to see if we can ever get that. And a choral piece titled When We Sing. On a more personal note, Kate was my mentor for 3 years when I was in preliminary fellowship when I joined you all, and I feel blessed to not just call her a colleague, but to call her a friend. Kate.
So I appreciate all you've been up to these last years, and also this space you're sharing, where there's a lot of light even on a foggy London Sunday. And I'm guessing that in a new space, you learn new things about yourself. It'll be, as you go. So I appreciate your steadfastness as a community, as a loving community through the events and challenges of this world around us. How's my sound?
Great.
Okay, okay. Yep. And Laura gave me her phone to put here so that I can boost my manuscript. All the tricks, because I don't want you to have to look at the top of my head. And as a faith community centered, concerned with justice and peace on this planet today, we do remember our suffering kin in the Middle East and hold them and so many others in our hearts throughout our time today and as things unfold. So, Laura, also thanks for Pinocchio. It's perfect. Last couple of years, there was a new Netflix animated Pinocchio version. Was quite kind of rugged and real for an animated. I recommend it. Anyway, truthfully, in a way, this topic was inspired by the Barbie movie, I know. In Midsummer, when the Barbie, who's seen it? Yeah, well, gosh, yes. Forgive me. When the Barbie ads rolled out, and I was uninterested to the point of eye rolling. Then I learned that Greta Gerwig is the writer-director. She's a feminist in a UU family. And then I started getting articles in my inbox about how the Barbie script is a redo of the Genesis creation story. And then I learned that my colleague serving our Tulsa congregation was doing a 4-week Barbie-inspired sermon series. So I saw the movie. I went with our UUA co-moderator, Meg Riley, with whom I laughed a lot and even wept a little. And we both went again. The reports I'd heard about the film struck me as true. The movie was a good-natured send-up of the patriarchy. It did spoof the hollow perfection promised by our consumer culture. But what struck me most and stays with me is the choice Barbie was given at the end. Will she choose to stay in a pleasant, plastic, unchanging world, a world without sorrow, uncertainty, brutality, or will she choose a life in the flesh, an embodied human life with its ambiguity, its messiness, its cellulite and decay, a life in which from time to time her eyes will leak saltwater tears? Which will she choose? So that's the frame for this. And I start with a poem by Marie Howe called What the Living Do. It's a poem she wrote after her brother John died of AIDS. Johnny, the kitchen sink has been clogged for days. Some utensil probably fell down there, and the Drano won't work but smells dangerous, and the crusty dishes have piled up, waiting for the plumber I still haven't called. This is the everyday we spoke of. It's winter again. The sky's a deep, headstrong blue, and the sunlight pours through the open living room windows because the heat's on too high in here and I can't turn it off. For weeks now, driving or dropping a bag of groceries in the street, the bag breaking, I've been thinking, this is what the living do. And yesterday, hurrying along those wobbly bricks in the Cambridge sidewalk, spilling my coffee down my wrist and sleeve, I thought it again and again later when buying a hairbrush. This is it. Parking, slamming the car door shut in the cold, what you called the yearning, what you finally gave up. We want the spring to come and the winter to pass. We want whoever to call or not call, a letter, a kiss. We want more and more and then more of it. But there are moments walking when I catch a glimpse of myself in the window glass, say the window of the corner store, and I'm gripped by a cherishing so deep for my own blowing hair, chapped face, and unbuttoned coat that I'm speechless. I am living. I remember you. So life in the body, life in the flesh. In an old 4-frame Peanuts cartoon, Lucy's holding an open book, reading to her brother Linus. And so she reads, the king was granted his wish. Everything he touched would turn to gold. Now the next day, stop, Linus says. Don't read any further, I know what's going to happen. Then he walks away saying, these things have a way of backfiring. Linus was right. In the ancient tale, King Midas wished that all he touched would turn to the most costly stuff in the world, gold. And overnight, he got his wish, which was thrilling, as long as he touched the doorknob and the plates and the stemware. But the king touched his breakfast and it turned inedible. And then his darling, dancing daughter kissed him good morning, and she became a cold gold statue worth millions, and the king went berserk with remorse. It was a hard lesson, awakening to the truth that the most precious substance the earth had to offer was his living daughter, her warm flesh animated by her loving spirit. That package, flesh plus spirit, was the true gold. Incarnation, that's the big word, the spirit inhabiting the flesh. Incarnation is our situation. It's a big Christian theological word referring to the incarnation, which, according to tradition, the second person of the Holy Trinity, Jesus came into the world in a human body. But I'm not going there. The word becoming flesh, that is scientifically, literally true for each of us. Though it strikes me as impossible, that is our astounding situation, the word of our your unique DNA alphabet, the word of the genetic code in our cells, produced the proteins that created our bones and blood and tissues. In each of us, the word became flesh and dwells among us here on the earth, in our houses, on the streets in Minnesota. This incarnate situation we share, this life in a spirit-infused body, is miraculous beyond telling. It's also really hard. In her poem, Living in the Body, Joyce Sutphin says, this is the first stanza, body is something you need in order to stay on this planet, and you only get one. And no matter which one you get, it will not be satisfactory. It will not be beautiful enough, it will not be fast enough, it will not keep on for days at a time, but will pull you down into a sleepy swamp and demand apples and coffee and chocolate cake. And the poem's last stanza, body is a thing that you have to leave eventually. You know that because you've seen others do it. Others who were once like you, living inside their pile of bones and flesh, smiling at you, loving you, leaning in the doorway, talking to you for hours, and then one day they are gone, no forwarding address. So, what are we to make of this mix of flesh and spirit? Finitude is challenging. Life in space and time is a life of limits. We all know gravity rules. We fall on the ice, we bump into things and each other. We suffer abuse, we get sick, we die of AIDS or COVID. Living in bodies requires sleep and food and shelter and insurance against all possible mishaps and having to choose this and not that, this love, not that, this place, not that. And in spite of AI and all, our flesh is not pixels, and everywhere digital clocks remind us there's no going back, only forward into tomorrow, into we don't know what. Warmer winters, addictions we never wanted, relationship quandaries, financial tangles, surprises that test us. And if we stay in the body long enough, we get aging and death for sure. It's a lot to ask of us, isn't it? It's a lot. I read something attributed to John of the Cross, the Spanish mystic of the 1500s, who was jailed and tortured for trying to reform the church. He had great tenderness for this troubled world and for our fleshly dilemma. And he said something like, with all humility, I say, it is God who should ask us for forgiveness, not the other way around. Someday you will know this, a saint could explain. He didn't know he would become one, I suppose. A surprising thought from a Catholic holy man, but I like it. From what I've seen of suffering, I think he's onto something. The late Forrest Church, our minister at All Souls, New York, used to say, religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. We are, in a way, you and I, just energy time capsules. At some point, our energy runs out, our time is up. And walking around with this knowledge is a very strange thing. But it's what the living do. As in the Marie Howe poem I read earlier, Johnny, the kitchen sink has been clogged for days, some utensil probably fell down, the Drano won't work, it smells dangerous. And this is, driving, dropping a bag of groceries. I've been thinking, this is what the living do. This is it. We want the spring to come, winter to pass. We want whoever to call or not call. We want more of it. But there are those moments when I catch a glimpse of myself in the window glass and I'm gripped by a cherishing for my own blowing hair and chapped face, an unbuttoned coat. I am living. I remember you. So here's Marie, living her ordinary life in a body while communing in spirit with her brother, sharing the details about spilling the coffee and clogging the sink. And she says, I'm fully in this body, is what she's telling him, and my spirit's still with you. Forrest Church, the one I quoted earlier, also said, whether or not there is life after death, surely there is love after death. And that moment of deep cherishing Marie has when she sees her reflection in the store window, that stab of love for her own ordinary life, that's something for me when I hear that. It's beyond ego. It's some larger love. It's as if capital L, love itself, unconditional, all-seeing love is looking through her eyes and knowing that to be alive right now and to be the carrier of the memory and the love is a privilege beyond comprehension. There's an image in Tibetan Buddhism that tries to express, and don't ask me where I got this, it was yoga long ago, but how special it is in this universe to get a chance to be human. And it goes like this: if the world was covered by one vast sea, and if one little inner tube was floating on that sea, and if a blind sea turtle somewhere in that sea surfaced to take a breath, what's the chance that that turtle would stick its nose up in the hollow of that inner tube? They're saying that's about the chance you and I have of being born in human form. It's that rare an opportunity. So opportunity for what? To work out something between flesh and spirit? Something that can happen only here? Something that matters? These words are from Mary Oliver, St. Mary. A poem simply called Poem. She writes, the spirit likes to dress up like this, 10 fingers, 10 toes, shoulders, and all the rest. At night in the black branches, in the morning in the blue branches of the world, it could float, of course, but would rather plumb rough matter. Airy and shapeless thing, it needs the metaphor of the body, lime and appetite, the oceanic fluids. It needs the body's world, instinct and imagination, and the dark hug of time to be understood. It needs somehow this flesh to be understood. There's something about spirit and love we can only know by living this time-limited life of effort and risk. So theologian Cynthia Bourgeault suggests, she's a writer, teacher, very deep woman, suggests that assuming God is love, and love is the cosmic glue, the energy behind the energy behind the energy in our material world, then there are aspects of love that can only be known in this dense world, this place of tough choices and limits. Here, love is costly. Here in time and space, love requires that our hearts be broken. Here, aspects of love, such as steadfastness and patience and fidelity and forgiveness, these qualities are revealed and required. Here we find ourselves in unsettling, violent times where we're called to side with love in spite of threat. Here, love is costly. And one of the profound products of incarnation, Cynthia says, the nectar of incarnation is tears. What are we doing here? Well, it seems often to me, it seems that we're making something. Spirit and flesh together are making something. I think of the poems we've heard today in this hour, Marie Howe and Joyce Sutphin and Mary Oliver. A poem itself is an incarnation. A poem gives a body to something, a ripple of consciousness, an experience of being human that really can't be said any other way, and it takes us there in a way that prose can't. And once the poet has done that labor of creation and the poem takes on a body, it always exists. In a way, it is eternal. And maybe in a similar way, love is just airy potential until we labor and live it in all those daily ways, unclogging the sink, wiping up spills, witnessing each other's uniqueness, putting care into action. Then we are like poets, giving love a body, the only body love can hope to have. So now here at kind of at the end of this homily, I could simply say, this is what I believe. But instead I want to say, in my life, this is the meaning I have chosen. To me, this feels more spiritually accurate to say it's the meaning I have chosen and am choosing. At the close of the Barbie film, Barbie is gently invited to weigh the options. A life of endless cyclical perfection, or a limited life of depth and tears. And in a very far-seeing, meditative moment, as she holds hands with her mother, mentor, angel creator Ruth, Barbie decides and says, I want to be part of the people who make meaning, not the thing that is made. I want to be part of the people who make meaning, not the thing that is made. This is our embodied gift, isn't it? We get to choose. We lucky sea turtles swimming in this ocean of mystery, who surface and find ourselves in a human life. This is what we get to do with our finitude. We get to be meaning makers, not to have our life scripted for us, but to choose the script we live by, to choose what it means, and then bet our life on it. It's an intimately individual, private task, and yet, as a wise one once said to me, this solitary work we cannot do alone. We need the company of other sojourners, fellow travelers. We need a community of care, companions in the meaning making, companions as you are here, as we are together today, right now. So be it, and amen.